Human trafficking is slavery of our time, but it's slavery of our time hidden in plain sight. You see it on street corners, you see it on tracks, you see it in poverty, you see it on the internet, you've seen it play out now in these entertainment arenas. It's a $245 billion business. It brings in more money than oil, Nike, and all the NFL football teams combined. And that's really what we just know about it.
I am DeForest B. Soaries Jr., and this is Say Yes When Life Says No. My guest today is Ms. Jacquelyn Aluotto, who is the leader of an organization called No Trafficking Zone, focusing on the problem of human trafficking. You know, when someone is born into a low-income environment, living an impoverished life, that person has many, many no's that they're facing. No, you can't buy some of the things that you want. No, you can't go some of the places your friends go. No, we are not going to have options like other people. This guest, Ms. Aluotto, was born into that environment, yet she said yes in response to all of those no's and turned into a real champion for human rights as an anti-human trafficking leader. I think you'll be informed and inspired by Jacquelyn Aluotto.
In the shadows of cities and small towns across America, a hidden crisis continues to grow. Human trafficking. Every year, thousands of children and vulnerable adults are exploited, forced into labor, coerced into abuse, and stripped of the very things every human deserves: freedom, safety, hope. This crisis tells its victims one word: no. No escape, no protection, no future. And as recent revelations dominating national headlines remind us, exploitation doesn't only happen in dark alleyways or hidden corners of society. It can exist in the highest circles of power, where wealth, influence, and secrecy have too often protected those who prey on the vulnerable. But every movement begins with someone willing to answer that no with a powerful yes. Meet Jacquelyn Aluotto, co-founder and president of No Trafficking Zone, a relentless advocate, a national human trafficking specialist, and a voice for those who've been silenced for too long. On the front lines of this fight, Jacqueline is challenging systems, confronting injustice, and helping transform pain into policy. Across the country, momentum is building. Lawmakers are advancing stronger protections for survivors. Courts are recognizing the truth behind exploitation. And new federal actions are helping vacate convictions for those who were once punished for crimes committed against them. This is a movement that says yes to protecting children, yes to accountability, yes to justice. Jacqueline's journey proves that resilience can spark reform, that compassion can change systems, and that one determined voice can shift an entire nation.
Joining me in the studio today is a national leader whose impact goes far beyond the borders of this country. Ms. Jacquelyn Aluotto is the head of and the founder of the No Trafficking Zone, which focuses on this global challenge of human trafficking. We hear the term, but very few people know the details about what's really happening in some very strange places. When I say strange, I mean people you would never expect to be involved on some level in human trafficking. And the devastation is widespread. So I'm honored. I'm honored to be friends with and in company with today Jacquelyn Aluotto. Jackie, thank you for, I call you Jackie, even though I'm supposed to call you Jacquelyn, but thank you for coming. I had no idea it would be as easy as it was to get you to come here to participate in Say Yes When Life Says No, so thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Listen, you are involved in global work. You're involved in helping other people's lives. And from the outside, You've been a filmmaker, you're a national leader, you testify before Congress, and so from the outside, it just looks like you've got it all going on. However, what we're here to really talk about is what you had to overcome to become who you are.
Sure. Well, I had an unusual childhood. I grew up poor. My mom ended up being a single mother very young, and it was really hard for her to cope with her life and her childhood. And probably at a young age, I was either 6 or 7, my mom had tried to commit suicide, and we ended up going to live with her first cousins, and they were just not good people. They were very abusive to us, and at the time, I couldn't speak. I had such a stutter from trauma that I actually couldn't articulate, which is hard for people to believe now because I speak so much. But I really, all of that journey for me, I feel like God paved this way for me to be exactly where I am now, but to also understand, what it's really like to be poor, what it's really like to be abused, and to see that there's so many different dynamics and so many things that are happening.
Yeah, but I want you to go back just a little further, because all of us look back and we see the redemptive value of what we went through.
Sure.
But while we're there, we don't think that way.
Right.
Describe how it really feels to be the child that's growing up in poverty, to be the child that's sent off to your cousins because of your mom's mental challenges, and then to be abused by your cousins, or to be in an abuse. I mean, how does that feel at that moment?
Well, when I was a kid, I was such a different person, and I was really scared of everything and everyone. I was scared to speak out. I didn't ever want to rock the boat. I wanted to make everybody happy. I hated seeing, my sister suffer or my mom suffer. And my dad always says that I learned to have a very good imagination to escape from everything that was happening. And I think that if you ever said you have to live your childhood again, I would tell you no. I never, ever want to go back to my childhood, but it's still such a blessing for me. I think that when you grow up in situations like I did, my mom ended up moving. I moved to 7 different schools. It was really always hard being the new girl, but I got to learn a lot about people and different places, but I never really felt like I belonged anywhere because we were constantly moving. And I really ended up raising my mom. My mom and I raised each other, and it was challenging, but I'd say as the years went by, when I became probably in the 5th or 6th grade, I actually got tired of being afraid, and I found my voice. And for me, that was something that was so important, because I'll never forget that day. And I remember when I found my voice, I wanted everybody to find their voice, because I never thought that I could have one, and I never thought that I would have one, and I never understood how powerful it was to use your voice.
Yeah, so this childhood that was impoverished, in my language, is kind of life saying no. We say that in America, we all have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but poverty can be quite stifling.
Yes.
And poverty can actually undermine your human potential. In addition to just the economic challenges, it can really break your spirit.
Yes.
You said that around 5th grade, you claimed your voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a metaphor, really, for saying yes.
Yeah.
To all of the no that life had offered you. So between finding your voice and doing your work, there was a process you went through. Once you found your voice, what behaviors, what decisions, what actions did you have to take to get from the no of an impoverished existence to the yes of really national leadership?
When I found my voice, I started speaking up about everything. And I kind of knew that every school I went to, because it was going to be a new school, it was kind of going to be the same story. I met great people, and then I met, kids that also would bully people.
Yeah.
And I became that kid where if I saw you bullying someone, I would speak up.
See, that's the point there. You started doing what you do now as a kid.
Yes.
Speaking up when it doesn't even impact you directly. And
Yeah.
that's what leadership is. Leadership is when you're willing to take action on behalf of people, even though you're not experiencing what they experience.
Yes. I remember it was my sophomore year. I had just gotten to a new school, and I saw a group of older girls bullying a younger girl. And I jumped in, and they said, this isn't your business. And I had asked them, you guys are seniors, and she's a freshman. Like, why are you bothering her? And I actually create more problems for myself.
Of course you do.
By doing things like that. But I also think that when you've been oppressed or abused, it's really hard to watch that happen to somebody else. And it's our job to stand up for other people that can't stand up for themselves.
Well, because once we have a bad experience, we either become the perpetrators or we become the liberators. You know, hurt people generally hurt people.
Yeah.
But hurt people can help people. And you chose to respond to what had happened to you by protecting other people when possible from it happening to them.
Yes.
Wow. When I look at you and when I read about the things you've done and listen to you speak, I always wonder what motivates a person to become who you become. When I met you as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, filmmakers made a lot of money and filmmakers had a particular business model that they were pursuing. And the next time I saw you, you were rescuing children from human traffickers and fighting for legislation. How did that happen? How did you get from being a filmmaker to being an advocate and leader in the anti-human trafficking arena?
Well, that's a very interesting journey. When I made my first film, Not in My Backyard, I had saved $25,000 in quarters from bartending and waitressing. I wanted to start a film company, but I wanted to show how women and children were really being abused in America. And I wanted it to be this ground eye view, this real raw look on what does poverty and abuse look like. And so took me 3 years to save $25,000 to get all the equipment that I needed. And I went across America going into shelters and seeing just organizations that perpetuate the cycle of violence but also break it. And during that time, I would come across what they were labeling as child prostitutes. And children cannot be prostitutes. Even if they think they're consenting, their brains aren't even mature and developed enough to understand what's happening to them. So after that film was done, it took me 7 years. I had created an organization called Real Beauty, Real Women. It's where beauty, glamour, and entertainment meet social responsibility. It was the first of our kind. You see all now these films and these causes merge with fashion. Mm-hmm. At the time in 2001, people weren't doing it. But what I was trying to do is I wanted to use pop culture and what people loved to get activated. And I knew that media controls the mind. And if you could tell a story in a certain way, you could evoke change. So when that happened, Real Beauty, Real Women was in the top 10,000 most viewed websites in the world. Project Runway, Lifetime, all these different networks, fashion, entertainment people came out to really support us. And it was amazing and I loved it. But the one thing was I couldn't get those kids out of my head. And I asked my mentor, Sandra, who opened the first battered women's shelter in North America, did you ever hear about human trafficking? Because at the time, the internet was just coming out. And she said, oh yeah, And so I started researching it because the word does not define the crime.
Right.
Think of human trafficking. Human trafficking is slavery of our time, but it's slavery of our time hidden in plain sight. You see it on street corners, you see it on tracks, you see it in poverty, you see it on the internet, you've seen it play out now in these entertainment arenas. And what it is it's the buying and selling of another human being. And many times it's the buying and selling of another human being against their will. And so there's different types of human trafficking. There's different types of pimps and traffickers and predators. And so once I started diving into that world, I kind of put film on the back end, and I really wanted to help people. Like, the beauty of my childhood was that even though I had experienced suffering, I really experienced compassion. I experienced the worst of people who did the worst things to people, and then I experienced the best of people. And I think that's really where I got my compassion from. And I decided when I was a kid that if I could ever stop people from suffering, I wanted to. And so when I got in the position that I was in, I really wanted to go back and help these children.
Listen, I'm here with Jacquelyn Aluotto, who is just a phenomenal leader. If you don't know who she is, then you're missing something, because she's doing great work, but I think equal in importance to her work is the transition she made from living a life with tremendous challenges as a child to growing into a woman who helps other children and people in general who are facing tremendous challenges. We'll be right back, but I just need you to know that this is one of the most powerful stories you'll ever hear. The year that my life was doing its best was the same year I was diagnosed with cancer. My response to that diagnosis is described in this book, Say Yes When Life Says No. Go to my website, dbstories.com, pick up a copy of the book, and I hope you'll be inspired by the way I was able to get past my no and embrace my life saying yes. Jacquelyn Aluotto, you talked about being impoverished. You talked about being exposed to bullies. You talked about your mom and the challenges she had. And I invited you here because of what you do, but I always want people to understand that no one starts out where they are. There's a story that includes a big fat no.
Yes.
in people's lives, and how you got through it and what actions you took will help motivate and guide other people who want to do the same thing. Now, today we focus on human trafficking with you, and you described the fact that people just don't know what it is. Let's talk in real detail about human trafficking. Are you telling me that as an African American whose heritage includes having people come to Africa and take people on slave ships and bring them to America and have them work without pay and sold as property, are you telling me that the term human trafficking basically describes that that's still happening today?
Yes, yes. Human trafficking is slavery of our time. It's a $245 billion business. It brings in more money than oil, Nike, and all the NFL football teams combined. And that's really what we just know about it. It is such a pervasive crime, and it is happening everywhere.
So is this organized, or is it ad hoc where someone just wakes up, or a couple wakes up? We hear sometimes about husband and wife that have somebody and they've held them. Is there an organized effort that is focused? I mean, the way slavery was. Slavery in the 16th century and 17th century was organized. It was funded. It was it had ships. It had buyers and sellers. Is human trafficking organized?
So there's different markets of human trafficking, but a lot of human trafficking is organized crime. It's very sophisticated networks. But there are different kinds of human trafficking. You know, most people know about like pimping, and they call it pimping and prostitution.
Right.
You can have like your one-off traffickers or pimps, but even that is organized. There's a system
So when you
that.
say human trafficking and pimps, when I think of a pimp, I think of kind of a local operation.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think of human trafficking, I think of like crossing borders.
So crossing borders is international trafficking. There is domestic trafficking, specifically in America, domestic minor sex trafficking, which is the child sex slave trade, is enormous in this country. There is an appetite for it.
Child sex slaves, which means that you take your daughter to the mall, and you two get separated, and she gets snatched.
No, that can happen.
Okay.
So that's the image that people have.
That's the image I have.
Okay. What child sex slavery is one of the ways it's prolific is your daughter goes to school. Your daughter is getting bullied. She then is befriended by someone, and that person starts making her feel confident and happy. She then starts isolating herself, changes the things that she likes. She's getting groomed. She doesn't even know that she's
by
getting
her
groomed.
so-called friend.
But yeah, peer-on-peer exploitation.
Well, who was her friend working for? The pimp?
Yeah, she's a victim herself. She's a recruiter for the trafficker.
She's a recruiter for the trafficker.
That's how Jeffrey Epstein did it in Florida. So for every victim that he was brought, those girls would get a $250, $300 finder's fee.
I see.
And a lot of times, kids don't even understand what they're getting others into.
They think they're helping their friend.
Sometimes, a girl said in the grooming and the recruiting process, when then she became the recruiter, she said something clicked in her and she realized, oh my God, this is how they got me. Because grooming, any of us could be groomed. Your mom dies, someone is divorced, you have a midlife crisis, anything, you lose your job, you go through a horrible time. A predator's job is to prey. And it's their job to know what your vulnerabilities are. We all have vulnerabilities. And so they use those vulnerabilities and they start exploiting them. But as they're exploiting you, you become trauma bonded to them, where you think, I need this person, I love this person, I've never felt like this before.
Trauma bonded.
Yes.
Meaning that you become attached to someone that is really induced by your experience, your traumatic experience.
Yes, so there's a few different ways that you could do trauma bonding. You could bond through your trauma, you could bond through traumatic experiences with them. So normally what happens is a predator will pull you in, and then their job is to start changing your identity. You trust your parents, any sports you like, anything that makes you feel like you and reminds you of who you are. Their job is to strip that completely away.
And to replace it with them.
Yes, and to isolate them, because they're slowly forming you into what they want you to become. A lot of times with kids, they'll give them a separate cell phone because they don't want their parents to know. If their parents take away their cell phone, they will bring them to a party, start introducing them to drinking and drugs, because drinking and drugs are going to help numb them. Then they will videotape them, and that's a lot of times where blackmail and shame come in, where if a kid lies about going to a party and she doesn't want to tell her parents, and then she's raped at that party, or sexual experience happens at that party, and it's videoed by that person. It's so insidious and slow how grooming and exploitation happens. And by that time, the person that you're trauma bonded to is your predator, but the person that you think is the only person who will accept you for who you are, because they only know that you've done those things.
But grooming is pretty consistent in the various forms, right?
Yes, isolation.
Because people don't sign up and fill out an application to be trafficked. I mean, there's
Right.
got to be a recruitment mechanism.
Sure, kids are recruited from churches.
And it's more often
from
than not
schools
through people that they know.
that they know, yeah. Yes, that's really, so the myth is that it's really someone in a van and they abduct you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen.
Right.
But it's just a lot smaller of a percentage of you're groomed. And the reason why that happened is because laws, up until now, if someone didn't see you physically getting kidnapped, they really weren't going to investigate that crime. It was always, well, she knew that person, he knew that person, he went with them willingly, she went with them willingly, so it's not a crime. So it was easier to commit crimes like that by grooming. And also with grooming, with that trauma bond, you are then so afraid to speak out against your trafficker because it's what they call stables. In a stable, you have a hierarchy and a lowarchy. You have your own culture and subcultures in this underworld. And these people become your family. You know, the girls will say, my folks. And so there's so many different elements of why they don't speak. Another thing is, one of the ways that they're getting to know you and gaining trust in the beginning is every dynamic of your relationship. Does your mom make you feel insecure? Is your dad not there? Are you poor? Do you have autism?
And there's so many
needs?
fragile families that
Yes.
it opens up opportunities that are almost unlimited, I would think.
Yeah, and I mean, just being a kid, you know, you're a teenager, you stop listening to your parents, your peers influence you more, you think, you know everything. Your brain it's developing. So you're so easy to exploit and target.
Is there any part of the country that is more prone to this dynamic? Do we find human trafficking happening more in the South or the North, East or the West?
So your two number one states are Texas and California, right? Extreme opposites. One's a red state, one's a blue state. Those are your two number ones. But no, human trafficking is happening in every community, in every city, and in mostly every school. The problem with the schools is that schools are more worried about accountability versus liability, especially in your good tax bracket communities, where it could really change the way people buy their homes and want to go to that school. So you have a lot of times schools will try to cover it up, or they'll think it's going to go away because they don't understand the crime. But once you have a trafficking network and a system working in your school, it's not going to go away until law enforcement intervenes and those people are arrested and held accountable. And that can literally happen for 3 decades. We've had girls that were trafficked from their schools to Las Vegas, and they've met girls 15 years older from the same place. It's also hard with trafficking victims because you have kids who come from the foster care system. Over 60% of child sex trafficking victims.
That's how we met.
Yes.
The connection between our foster care work
Yep.
and you're looking at trafficking, right?
Yes. And
You said 60%
over 60%
of
children in the welfare system and the foster care system are trafficked.
Well, again, you've opened my eyes more, but again, I've never connected these dots.
Sure.
And I think more people need to understand the sinister nature of things that many of which are legal.
Yes.
Many of which are legal. So now you focus on legislation. Let's talk about legislation that makes it harder. Of course, I don't think we change people with laws, but we certainly need laws to put some parameters around our standards. So talk about the laws.
So one of the things with No Trafficking Zone is our mission is to create no trafficking zones across America. Our goal is to make America a no trafficking zone. And one of the ways you are only going to do it is if human trafficking, the slave trade, becomes a high-risk crime where it's not worth it to do it. And so that means a first-degree felonies, charges that would be the same as capital murder, 25 to 99 years. Because then all of a sudden the profit that you're making is not worth it. And also, human trafficking is so lucrative because of the profit and the participation. It also will make less people want to participate in it also because of these crimes. So We create no trafficking zones, whether it's schools or universities or foster care centers or wherever, where it's 25 to 99 years. We just in Texas made all of Texas a no trafficking zone. So if you human traffic anyone in the state of Texas, it is now at 25 to 99 years, first degree felony, and that includes online solicitation.
So it's kind of like the drug-free zones where
Yes.
if you traffic in drugs in a certain area, like around a school,
Yep.
the penalties are greater than it would be otherwise.
Yes. So we finally got to make it all of Texas is now one. New York just announced their first no trafficking school zone bill that they're introducing.
So there are people who are actively lobbying against the no traffic zone penalty movement?
There are people that lobby just the whole anti-trafficking movement. Big tech is one of our biggest enemies in Congress. These big platform groups are protected by what's called the 230 provision. They call it under the Decency Act, but there's nothing decent about it. And so what happens is big tech makes billions of dollars from these images. Visa, MasterCard, they make money because every time you swipe to watch this content, they're getting a percentage of it. The reason why this crime is so powerful is because it generates so much money.
Listen, so you're fighting Visa, MasterCard, you're opposing big tech, you've got these rings, these invisible rings making all this money. You are a threat to that industry. How are you handling that? I mean, you're not the favorite child of many sectors of society.
No, I mean,
Do you get threats?
I'm of course. I mean, I think a lot of people who've been as vocal and have been able to move the needle and make changes get threats. It's a part of what you sign up for.
So how do you handle this? I mean, you wake up every day knowing that you're swimming upstream, you're fighting major players, many of whom are invisible, some are institutional. So how does Jacquelyn Aluotto maintain peace and joy and sanity and security?
Well, a couple years ago, I went to therapy. I became a whistleblower. I had worked for a very powerful law enforcement agency, and I found that there was a lot of wrongdoing happening there.
Inside a law enforcement agency?
Yes.
So you blew the whistle?
I blew the whistle, and I was for sure that the constable of that organization was going to be just as disturbed as I was. And basically, they tried to cover it up. And I went against the county that I live in. We ended up winning a large settlement. It took 4 years. I didn't take my settlement. I refused my settlement because my settlement was in exchange for silence. And in any of these institutions, there has to be accountability. And if I would have taken that settlement, then I would have just been like everybody else. I get my money, I'm quiet, and then the system continues. And I call those corruption clusters. And so if you notice on a big scale or on a local scale, you start understanding corruption with all the people around it and why it continues to happen.
Right.
And I feel like it's a part of our job to dismantle that. It is scary. I mean, at times I think I must be out of my mind. Like, what is wrong with me? I should just go and like open up a florist shop and like make flowers. But I am a mom, and I also refuse to leave this world like this for my child and for every other child. I do believe that we live in the greatest country in the world. We have this right to sit here and talk. But even though it's still such a great country, it is extremely flawed. And I just can't be a bystander and just be okay with what's happening. So I do a lot of praying. I talk to people like you. You've helped me tremendously when I whistle blew and I was in a very bad way. And you said to me, and I don't think you realize how much that changed when you had said, I would stand with you. So I hope you know how much you are a part of this movement, because when you keep leaders like me going and mentor people like me, when we want to give up, you're really a big part of this engine. And I think that people need to have really good mentors if they're going to be whistleblowers, because you're going to get ripped apart and you're going to get discredited, and you're going to need a good mentor to go to that you can trust. So I just want to thank you.
Well, listen, Jacquelyn Aluotto, I just can't thank you enough for sharing with us. Even being a part of this platform creates more risk for you. And it's beyond admirable. I mean, the courage that you have today is reminiscent of Ida B. Wells, the black woman who published a newspaper to expose lynching in the South, or Harriet Tubman, who went south to deliver people who had been human trafficked, or Fannie Lou Hamer, who was put in jail and inmates were paid to beat her simply because she wanted to vote. I mean, you want this to be a better country for your daughter, better country for the country, and a better world for the future. And you have experienced great pain. You continue to have aspects of this country say no to you, and you keep saying yes. And so thank you. God bless you. And folks, I'm hoping you will Google Jacquelyn Aluotto, No Trafficking Zone, and at least pray for her, keep up with this great work, this anti-human trafficking work. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back momentarily with closing remarks. There was a time in my own neighborhood where an illegal strip club was operating. We organized and had it closed because we were offended that these high school girls would leave school during the day and strip for these truck drivers coming through town. I never connected that institution with this issue that we discussed today of human trafficking. Jacquelyn Aluotto, for me, is a Harriet Tubman, is a champion of justice, because she's opposing a multi-billion-dollar industry, and she's fighting for people who are nameless and faceless and sometimes kept invisible. I'd like to know that we are supporting her, that we're praying for her, and that we're keeping our eyes open and our ears open, listening to our children, knowing what's going on in our neighborhoods, because this is a sinister problem that undermines the integrity of our nation and of our freedom. The No Trafficking Zone is an important organization, and I'm hopeful that you'll at least pray for them and support them in whatever way you can. Thank you to the No Trafficking Zone for the work that you're doing. Every day, each one of us is faced with a no in our lives. But today, you decided to say yes to watching this program. Subscribe to this channel and keep watching for more content.